Whitney, it's so great to catch up with you today. 10 years ago, our families were both living in the Bay Area. And I remember you telling us about this dress company that you had just launched called Sonnet James. And as you described your idea to us, we all immediately loved it. It's been so fun to watch you continue to grow your company, which included a successful appearance on Shark Tank in 2019. And my wife always loves getting a new Sonnet James dress. So thanks so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Nate. I really appreciate it.
And before we jump in, I would love if you could just give us a rundown of what you've been up to these last 10 years.
Yeah, so actually February of 2023 is my 10-year anniversary of Sonnet James. So that feels like a very big deal that I made it 10 years. But yeah, so you met me at the very, very beginning of all this. I started Sonnet James um, when I was 27 and I had two little kids. I had an 18-month-old and a 4-year-old. And I was single and I hadn't, been in the workforce in years. And um, I was really, really poor and really, really desperate. And I had this wild and crazy idea to start a business. Um, and I guess I have to say, it was actually like I think the sixth or seventh business I'd started, but I didn't really think of any of those as businesses. Like it should have been like very clear, like I was an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
like age 17, but I still didn't feel like I had any business starting a business. I didn't study anything about it. I literally had no idea what I was doing. So yeah, I started it. I basically had this idea to make a play dress, and it was based around um, wanting to help mothers and wanting to help children. And so the idea was that I could make a dress that my mom could have worn to help remind her to be more playful with me when I was little, because she really struggled with depression and just being engaged. And I felt like I was going through a similar experience. And I really wanted to be an amazing mother. That's what I really sort of care about more than anything. And so that's how the idea of the dress, they always say like it just starts with the idea.
Mhm.
Once you get the idea, then um it's really just about hard work after that. So the idea was there and the seed was planted. Um but I just wasn't brave enough for a little bit. And then New Year's Eve, my family was sitting around and they said we were sharing our New Year's resolutions. And I said, I'm going to um, make and sell 10 dresses this year. And I thought that was a really big, brave thing because I didn't know how to sew. I didn't know how to do anything. I hadn't made one yet. I had two little kids. And so Kylan, who, you knew from Stanford, my brother, he was like, maybe we can like up that a little bit. Like, what if 100 dresses? And I was like, okay, I'm gonna do it. I accept your challenge. And so um the great thing about me is I'm I'm very ambitious and I'm very determined. So when I do set my mind to something, it's pretty fast. So the next day, I made a 6-week goal that I was going to have everything done in 6 weeks. So that was a crazy, crazy wild ride. I taught myself how to sew, how to pattern draft, how to build a website, you know, um, and this is all from like 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. every night when the kids had gone to
Wow.
sleep. So that that's the beginning of the story. And then, the next 10 years were just like jumping out of an airplane. Um, and I I grew super fast year over year. It was just like I honestly wasn't really even it really felt so much like jumping out of an airplane that there was no like, okay, let's sit down and do like our growth projections
Yeah.
and like, it was just like I just had to keep going. Like I didn't have any choice. It was just like running as fast as I possibly can. So it grew really fast. I passed the $1 million in sales, which was a huge thing for me because I had read so much about how what a small percentage of women-owned businesses pass the $1 million um, sales, and so that was big. And then I went on and I passed that, and I kept growing, and Shark Tank reached out to me.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Shark Tank reached out to you.
Shark Tank reached out to me a few years earlier. I had been like, maybe I should do this, and then like I sort of it was exciting for a minute, and then I sort of was like over it. So by the time they reached out to me, things were going so fast, and I sort of felt like it wasn't the right time anymore. Like I felt like my company needed to be a little bit younger,
Mhm.
it was 5 years at this point. And so I was just like, I I do believe that things, if you're open, I have this like very much like being open to the universe, being open to what comes to you, and that
Mhm.
sort of you'll attract what is meant to be yours. And so it came and I didn't really feel like it was great timing, but I'm like, well, I'm just gonna see where it goes, like I'm not gonna put too much thought or energy into it, but I'll just keep, you know, writing back to them. And so they'd be like, okay, send us a video of your pitch. And so I like set my phone down on the desk and I did like the first attempt pitch and sent it to them. It was not like I was spending a lot of time. And they'd be like, we love it, it's great, next video, next step.
Wow.
And so I was just like, okay. And just it just I kept getting moved to the next level and the next level. So it was honestly Shark Tank, it's really complex because I feel like it sort of ruined Sonnet James in some ways, but then it also, gave me my greatest sales year. It connected me to my investor and mentor now, Sarah Blakely. So
Right.
there's pros and cons to it, but for about 6 weeks, I didn't have a big team. I had like 2 other employees, right? And so I had to take basically 6 weeks off of running Sonnet James, which when you run a company, you can't.
Right.
It's like death to your company to take 6 weeks off. So, um, but you have to do that. You have to do a ton of work. You have to do a really deep dive into your business and all the financials and all that. So I did that. I filmed. So that was basically like May and half of April, and then June is when I filmed. And it was really it was really sort of a messed up experience, I'm gonna say. I'm Shark Tank. I I have so many um feelings around Shark Tank, but they they bring you in and you stay in this hotel with a bunch of other people that are pitching for Shark Tank. And you I was put in a room, and it's just a very, basic room. And the first day you pitch to all the executive um you know producers or whatever, and
Uh-huh.
then you wait. And so there's like 40 people like at these tables, and you just like pitch to them, and it's pretty terrifying. And then you wait to hear from them if you made it to the next round. And so Monday I pitched, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I heard nothing. So I literally just had to sit in my hotel room because you don't know, at any moment they could tell you like you need to come now, so you can't like go anywhere.
And your company needs you all during this time, of
And my
course.
company needs me, but I'm also like, if I go, I need to be ready. So I would just like memorize every question, and I'd go over all my data and my numbers. And so I had my first panic attack that week,
No.
just because I was, yes, like it was like, I'm going to be on national television. Like, is this going to ruin the last 5 years of my life? Like, are they going to make me look like I'm stupid? Are they going to make it
Yeah.
look like a joke? You have no idea how it's going to go. And so, and you're in a hotel room by yourself for days. It's really messed up. So I didn't get contacted until Friday at about 1
Oh,
p.m.
wow.
and they said you're going on at 7. So yeah, it was a television show. It was on a like really sort of old you know one of those LA production places where it's just a big warehouse building and you're in like some old trailer, and it was nothing glamorous about it. And I pitched and it was incredible. I did a really good job, mostly because I had done nothing but prepare for an entire week. But um the judges were great. They were super nice to me. They were, you know, I was hoping they were going to kind of like go into me harder because I was like, I prepared all this. Like,
Mhm.
I want to, I want to actually get drilled here. Um, but they were so nice and supportive and
And moved to tears. I mean, this episode, watching it, I've watched it a number of times. It's just incredible how smoothly it goes. And it just progresses so like calmly, methodically, and they're just eating it up the whole time.
it,
I
it,
mean, it
it
was amazing.
we really never stopped. Like I expected it to be um yeah, a bit more choppy. I expected it to be way longer. Like, I think we only filmed for like 23 minutes or something. And, I think my clip was like 10 minutes long. So not that much was edited out. And um, yeah, I just was so like, I'm not I'm not good in front of people. I'm not good in front of crowds. I'm not good public speaker. Like, it was just like, but when you look at me on that episode, it looks like I was born to be on
Yeah, I
television.
mean, you just aced it. Yeah. And did you know that Sarah Blakely would be one of the sharks that day?
I did not. I did
Wow.
not know she was going to be there. So, that was, yeah, that's, I do believe I was meant to be on Shark Tank. Because I believe I was meant to meet Sarah and, have a relationship with her. We're very similar people in so many ways, and sort of our values and how we approach business. And so, um, yeah, that was meant to be. But yes, I did move Mr. Wonderful to tears. Um, Mark Cuban, like, I felt like treated me like his daughter, like he was a proud dad of
Yeah.
me, and I just felt really like. And then the women were just like super supportive. And then Mr. Wonderful said I was the best fashion presentation in his 10 years of
Yeah.
being on Shark Tank. So, um, yeah, it was very surreal because it's usually such like this cutthroat, like tear people apart for television sort of
Mhm.
thing. And my experience was not like that at all. And um, so yeah, then the chaos began. So the filming was was great and fine. And then from that, so I got a deal. I made a deal with Sarah for 25% for 350,000. And um after that is when you start going, the lawyers start talking. You don't talk to the
Oh, yeah.
people anymore, just the lawyers start talking. So that's a lot, for a small company, um to go through something this big, like, a merger and changing from, LLC to C corp, and like there's just a lot of stuff involved in that. And then preparing for being on air, I had to buy a ton of inventory to, and up to that point, I'd never run in debt. I'd always been cash positive. And um I know it's a bit unusual for a company, is probably especially a fashion company, but um I didn't know any different, and I just always had cash, and so I was very, very scared of debt. Um, and I was very conservative as well as far as like how much inventory I'd buy and things like that. So when when Shark Tank said that I was going to be on air in November, um, then Spanx was like, okay, you need to go all in. And I wanted to do pre-orders because I wanted to be careful, and they're like, no, that's a terrible idea. Nobody likes pre-orders. You got to have the inventory there. So I did it. I basically used all of my cash and bought all my bestsellers. And then about 2 weeks before my air date or so, Spanx emailed me and said Shark Tank had just let them know that they'd pulled my episode, and I
Oh,
wasn't gonna be on Shark Tank anymore. So um, I was like, wait, what now? Like, are they allowed to do that? Like, and so Sarah had signed a contract to do one episode. So um, they had picked 4 people to be on it, and I was one. But then last minute they switched it out for like a purse umbrella company.
mhm.
And so that's who filled. If you watch like the November 16th episode or whatever, like that's Sarah's first episode. And that's the one I was supposed to be on. So when that happened, our deal hadn't gone through. So we hadn't they hadn't given me the money yet. And I was so worried, like, okay, well, I'm not gonna go on air. All my inventory,
Right.
I got all this inventory, and all my customers already have all these dresses because they're the best sellers. There's nothing new. And maybe Sarah's not going to do the deal with me anymore because I'm not going to be on Shark Tank. So, and I also was sworn, like there was an NDA, so I couldn't say anything to anyone. I
Oh
couldn't
my
talk
gosh.
to anyone. I couldn't even tell my family anything. Like it was such a lonely, scary place. So that was really hard because I felt like it was such a cruel thing, like that Shark Tank can do with its the people that come on the show, the businesses, because I'd worked for 5 years as a single mom, like every night, every blood, sweat, and tears to start this company and run it and get it very successful. And just like in one decision of like, no, we're switching this person out for this person, like my whole company was basically going to end.
Yeah, they
Like
can ruin you. Yeah, that one
it,
decision can ruin
it
you.
was gonna be ruined. Yeah. And so that was really hard. And Spanx didn't really know what to do. And
And
so
you're mentioning Spanx. So I've talked about Sarah on this podcast before, and I just admire her and respect her and love what she's done. But
yeah.
do you want to just give a little background on Sarah for those who don't know
Yeah.
who she is?
Yeah. So Sarah, she went to school, she went to law school, or she wanted to go to law school, but she failed the test. I think she took it maybe a couple times, or I don't know. She failed that. So then she started selling fax machines. That was what she was doing,
Right.
knocking on my door. And she had this crazy, wild idea. And our stories are pretty similar in a lot of ways because um, she had saved up $5,000 from selling fax machines and to start her business. And I had, I think, $4,000 that I'd saved
Wow.
from previous. And that's what we had to start our companies. And so yeah, she started Spanx. She just basically took pantyhose and cut the legs off of them, and so you could wear them under white pants basically and like have some shape and no underwear lines. And she she never got money. She never had an investor. She owned 100% of the company until February or so when she sold the majority of the stake. But she was like the youngest self-made billionaire, female billionaire, um, I think until maybe like Kylie Jenner or something like that. And yeah, she is just an incredible business person and has is really who I look up to the most out of anyone for how to be a person in this space of business, not just a woman, but across all genders. She's incredible, and she's still very much a mentor to me now. So
And she's, so this is the woman that you've signed the deal with. It hasn't completed yet, and now they don't know what to do. Spanx doesn't know what to do because Shark Tank's pulled the episode. So yeah, what happens next?
So nothing. I'm just like, that's it. That's the end of Sonnet James. Like, I know I'm out of money because, but I mean, I wasn't because I hadn't even gone into like the debt world, the loan,
Mhm.
it was all new to me, but it felt very much over. And so then like maybe 2 days before Christmas, I got an email from them and they said that Sarah had gotten them to agree to a second episode for her and that I was going to be on it on January 19th.
Wow.
And at that point, I was so over everything that I
Yeah.
was like not even excited. I was just like, I cannot believe I just got put in this situation that I was in, and like everything was so out of my control, and I risked like my livelihood and taking care of my children on this like stupid thing. But so it took me, by the time I aired, wasn't I was still in a pretty like sour mood,
Mhm.
like a bad space about it. Um but yeah, it aired and there was so much attention, like the local news station came and did a thing on me and like just so much press and so many interviews and um there I heard this saying that like there's after you do any sort of sale for your company, there's usually like a depressive period. And I didn't actually know about that before this happened, but after, so I did the sale closed the same week that I aired for Sonnet James. So there was a lot happening in a very short amount
Yeah.
of time. And then a ton of press afterwards, and then a ton of sales and a growth that was so fast. And we weren't we weren't like, even if you try your best, I guess, sort of to prepare, we weren't prepared for that. And so it was just a lot all at once and it was really hard for me. And yeah, so I guess that's what happened with Shark Tank. And then that was 2019. Then we had our best, we passed 2 million. and and then 2020 hit, and the pandemic
Oh,
started,
yeah.
and California shut down, and that's where everything is made for Sonnet James. And so it was really, really tough. It's been a really tough uh almost 3 years, I guess. So and now I'm just, now I'm in my next phase of like, okay, how do you keep a business going in, difficult economic times? And so I feel like I'm really getting the full like all different experiences of running a business, which I'm grateful for. But
I can't imagine that. So that whole Shark Tank experience, the only thing I can think of is you win a really big game, you win the Super Bowl, or you
yeah,
win your the state championship that you've been dreaming of your whole life, and then you win it, and you've been on such a high. It's almost
yeah,
like in order to balance out emotionally, it's almost like you have to dip down really low,
yeah,
or at least relative to how high you were, you're going to be feeling so down and low. So that's interesting to hear that. And I to hear that Shark Tank experience and then the pandemic, that's a whole other world of challenges and struggles. It's just so easy outside looking in, like, oh, Sonnet James is going great, sales keep going up.
yeah,
We're so happy for Whitney, this is awesome. But just it's so interesting to get inside your story a little bit more and hear about these struggles. And I want to be sensitive to your time. That was such a cool story to hear the background. And now that we have this background on Sonnet James, as you think about the lessons you've learned, and you've learned countless, obviously, and I'm sure, but of all the lessons you've learned, are there 2 to 3 simple, practical, underappreciated lessons that you'd most like to pass along to your children?
Yeah, so I like the most sort of simple, basic one I I found has brought me sort of the most success is exercising every morning.
Wow,
Um,
I did not expect that.
I know, but it to to do what I have done and to carry a very high amount of stress and you know, just in general, living and being alive in this time is really hard mentally. And so it's mostly for mental health, I would say, and really starting your day off and getting, those that boost of like serotonin and dopamine and um is really what got me through um like there are times when I haven't exercised and I can definitely see where it's like, my productivity is really low. So I, it's really simple. Like it's
Yeah.
not a hard thing to do, but it really makes such a huge difference in the amount of work you can get done, in how you feel about yourself. And anyway, so that's what I would say to my kids is like to manage high stress and be able to get the things done you want to in your life and really leave the mark you want and do what you feel passionate about. And um exercise is really important, and I
Uh,
know
I
doctors would agree with me, but
Oh,
it,
absolutely.
it's true.
And I love that. So uh, when I created this podcast, I started with monologues, just brief, simple, underappreciated, practical lessons that I want my kids to learn. And one of the very first ones that I thought of was exercise. And I heard this analogy once about, our cars and how, some people just love cars and they make sure they get the oil changed and they're always, getting the maintenance that they need and they're washing it all the time. And we take such good care of our cars, knowing that we're going to replace that car in 5 to 10 years. Yet with our bodies, we
Hmm.
don't. We don't take care of it. And we don't have all these sensors on our bodies like we have the car. And
Hmm.
and so one of the first episodes I created was an episode around health and trying to, you know, persuade and convince my kids and students to take care of their bodies and exercise. So that's so cool to hear that coming from you as well.
Yeah, because having a business is really, really challenging on your mental health. And people saying, "Oh, you can't do it, it's not going to be possible, and this is crazy," or just, managing, debt, or, just all sorts of things. It's you got to have a really healthy mental health to do it.
Yeah.
And so that's the first one I would say. The second really simple, basic one that I've learned over all these years is blocking out my week. So for a long time, it was just sort of like do whatever like was the most urgent. Like every morning, I just sort of wake up and like check my email and then be like, okay, what's the most urgent, and just like
Mhm.
go through. And I'd be like, 30 minutes here, and then I'd switch over to this and over here, and you just sort of feel like you don't get anything really accomplished every day. You are, but it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
Um, and you're probably not actually being as productive. So what I've started doing is I block out my week. So exercise, I do exercise 4 days a week, and that's first thing in the morning. And then Monday I do all my logistical stuff. So that's the stuff I hate the most. So it's basically like I make a to-do list, and then I put all the things that I'm dreading the most, and I have to do those first. So my logistics are my Monday's my long day, and I do all of the nitty-gritty management stuff.
Hmm.
And then Tuesday, exercise, and that's my creative design day. So that's when I go to the city and I work on all my dress designs and patterns. And then Wednesday, exercise, and I plan all my meetings on Wednesdays. And then Thursday, exercise, and that's my think session day. So I spend 4 hours just with a notepad and a pencil like in the library and I just write out all of my ideas and future plans, my next what I want to do for the next year, my goals, my all of that stuff. And then Friday sort of is creating content and like more creative stuff and sort of my off day too. So that that is a really important thing for me to do to like if you actually put in the markers for how you're going to spend your time, you're actually going to do that instead of just thinking like, oh, at some point during the week I'm going to um you know, design my dresses or fit in my meetings, whatever. So I know that's a really simple one, but it especially like with any ADHD tendencies, it's like very easy to get distracted.
Yeah.
And I don't know if like having the business has given me more of those qualities or the pandemic has, made it even worse in technology and all that stuff, but it's just so easy to get distracted that I found this is really helpful for me.
Yeah, I think that's so interesting too, because I remember learning this idea of urgency and importance, thinking of it on like a 2 by 2 matrix. And I think it was Stephen Covey that I first learned it from. And so we have urgent, important things and urgent, not important things, but we also have not urgent, important things and not urgent, not important things. And what happens is we end up so often just spending our time on the urgent things. And urgent, important is fine, but it's when we're doing urgent, not important that can derail our day, and then we never get to the not urgent important things. So cool to hear that you spend the way you structure your time, and then that you're spending 4 hours thinking. So I just had per week at least. I
Yeah.
just had Jeremy Utley on the podcast, and Jeremy teaches creativity at the Stanford D School, and
Mm,
a couple of the lessons that he taught was one, the most important factor in being creative is just coming up with lots of ideas, that quantity beats
mhm,
quality. And then he
mhm,
was talking about the Nobel Prize winner, Daniel Kahneman, who collaborated with Amos Tversky. And their goal was to always be a little bit underemployed, because if they were too employed, if they were too busy,
mhm.
they could never take the time to think. Now, you whether you heard that story or not, you understood this
Haven't.
principle. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you didn't need to hear it because you already understand it. But so cool to hear that you're doing that. And I think that is a very simple, practical, truly underappreciated um, behavior that can really lead to incredible productivity. So cool to hear.
Okay, and so those were my two very like practical ones. And then the third one that I really think is the most important that I hope my kids learn so deeply and is a part of them forever is that um life is all about relationships. And so that extends into business. For me, business is all about relationships. And it's it's very easy to think that to be successful in business you have to be cutthroat, you have to be like, you know you were supposed to deliver by this date and you missed it, and so like these are the consequences or whatever. Um but it it's not. And I think for a long time, um I think that's one of the things Sarah has taught me is that um I didn't really want to go into business because I just thought it was like, in all the movies you see or whatever, it's like the mean,
Right.
business guy, and it's just all about like the bottom line and everything. And really my experience, it was when I kind of started to talk to a lot of businessmen in the area, it did feel like that. But Sarah showed me that you can have a lot of more feminine qualities um to bring with you into the business world that are, you can still feel like I feel like good about myself and like
Yeah.
going to bed every night and like I can sleep well. But she's so kind and she's silly and she's funny and she's very authentic and vulnerable. And um, you know, there were times there's so many stories with Sarah and Spanx, but um, I've just found that, you know, when you choose the people that you work with, you can choose, and people may disagree with me, but this is just how I've come to my own conclusion. You can choose the very most efficient, fastest person, for example, to make my markers and my patterns. But if I don't, I have to work with that person sometimes twice a week. If I don't enjoy that time with that person, then what is the point of life
Right.
if hours upon hours that multiply, you're not enjoying this person and you're not, you know, so maybe the person is a little bit slower or maybe, you know, whatever, but every single person that I work with, I feel as if and I treat as if they are family. And I feel like that went against everything that I'd ever heard and learned. Like it's not personal, it's business, or you know, those
Yeah.
things. Um, but I truly believe, and it's not just for the payoffs at all, but this is how I want to live my life. I want um to have a fullness and a richness, and I want um to be close to the people that I work with every day. But I found that when you're in a pinch, when the economy is bad and you need a favor, or you need to extend something, if you need, you know, longer terms, if you need something rushed, these things matter. You know, people are going to help you if they like you and if you're nice to them and if you guys have a relationship. And so I think that that's what I want my boys to know is just in general, like what's the point? What's the meaning of life? To me, it's the relationships we make and the connections we make with other people and animals too. I'm gonna throw animals in there, but all the relationships that we have and whatever you choose to do for your work, for whatever you feel most passionate about and you choose is um that you really should focus on the relationships in your life. So that is my final life lesson, I guess, over the last 10 years.
I just love this approach. I have been thinking about my former football coach, Bronco Mendenhall. He was coaching at the highest levels, and it's so competitive and cutthroat and never a day off. And
Mhm.
after 20, 30 years of doing that, he retired, or he didn't retire. He stepped away for a year, and so he was at the University of Virginia as the head coach, and he just stepped down. He's taken this year off, and he said that of the hundreds of messages he's received from former players and staff members and employees, not a single message has mentioned a play, a
Mhm.
game, an outcome. Every
Mhm.
single one of those several hundred messages is all about, hey, remember this experience when you said this or when we did
Mhm.
that together. And it was all about the relationships. And in the ethics class that I teach, I ask the students, what do you want to do in 20 years? And so often the answer is essentially, I want to get rich, I want to grind, and then I want to enjoy my life. And
Mhm.
I try to encourage them to think about enjoy your life now. You don't, those 20 years in the future are not guaranteed. And I love your approach of just like finding the people you want to work with. You believe in opening up yourself to the universe and attracting people that you want to be with. Now, I should have probably not said anything after you spoke because it was just so beautiful the way you said it, but I love this approach, and this is something that I hope that I can teach my children as well. So you've given me way more time than I asked for, and I have to say this is a record, Whitney. This is the longest episode, and I'm so grateful to you
Oh my
for.
gosh.
I'm grateful to you for your willingness to do this and share so sincerely and thoughtfully And I'm grateful that you went through that story and help us appreciate where you're coming from and why these lessons are so important. So we just want nothing but best for you and for your family and for Sonnet James. We're so excited to continue watching you thrive from a distance. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, Nate. It was such a pleasure, and I love what you're doing. I love the idea of this podcast, so I'm excited to listen to more of your episodes.